Okay, so in terms of artists hiring a lawyer, when might you do something like that? And I feel like we hear about, lawyers are so expensive. Could an indie artist ever hire a lawyer? Would it be smart for, what situations might a small artist or a DIY artist need to hire a lawyer?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it's one I've been thinking about a lot recently because it's been kind of brought to my attention that it might not be as intuitive as we'd like to think.
Yeah.
And not everybody is as lucky as us to have, known a lawyer. So I think the question of when you would hire a lawyer depends on what you're looking for. That's the annoying lawyer answer for everything is it depends.
Yeah.
And I think here that's appropriate as well. But what I would say is it depends on what you're looking for. So I think probably 3 of the big categories of lawyers and therefore legal services that are out there, at least relevant to what we're talking about today, is litigation, transactions, and then I'm going to add tax in there, just with the caveat that if you got a tax question, you got to call a tax lawyer. That's just the way it goes. They're the specialized people that deal with that.
Right.
So now litigation and transactions, I think, are hopefully the 2 that most people deal with, most even indie artists would deal with. And how I'm going to define litigation is this is any type of dispute resolution. So there doesn't necessarily have to be a lawsuit on file. This is just, like I said, there's some type of dispute that needs to be resolved. On the flip side, the transactions, that's any type of deal that you're looking at. So this is anything from you playing a solo gig at some bar down the street to you selling your entire catalog for $100 million to some private equity firm.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Those are all transactions. So that's kind of the dichotomy here. A lot of times when you're poking around on a law firm's website, you'll see a distinction made between litigation and transactions. So now the question is when you would hire a litigator or when you would hire a transactional lawyer. And on the litigation side, I think it's a little bit more straightforward, right?
Yeah.
For example, let's say you are working your day job at Wahoo's Fish Tacos, just picking an example out of thin air here.
I did that in college.
And you're wearing your name tag. It says Andy on it. And some guy walks up to the counter and he goes, Andy, wait, are you Andy Sitto? And you say, yeah, I'm Andy Sitto. Thinking it's some fan. You got to sign another autograph at work today, right? And he goes, oh, cool. You've been served, and hands you a packet of papers. It happens. And on the summons and complaint, it says so-and-so v. Andy Sitto band. Well, you should hire a lawyer, right? You're being sued.
Right.
It's real now.
Yeah.
You got to hire a lawyer.
Yeah.
On the other side of the V, so to speak, if you got some type of dispute with someone and you think that they need to give you whatever you're not getting, and you might need to sue somebody, you should call a lawyer and see if they're willing to help you.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, this is any type of dispute. A lot of my practice is people not necessarily wanting to file a lawsuit, and we get involved and hopefully get it resolved without even having to do any paperwork at all, except for a settlement agreement. So that's what I would say on the litigation side. If you have a dispute that you're having trouble getting resolved, call a lawyer and ask if they're willing to help.
Yep.
Certainly if there's any type of formal litigation involved, you should call a lawyer. Those systems are just not designed for you to be able to navigate without a lawyer. Even small claims courts, which sometimes will profess to be designed and maybe theoretically are designed for people to be able to navigate without a lawyer. I mean,
it's hard to do.
Those can not be as straightforward as they might think as well.
Now, how about handshake deals? We hear about handshake deals all the time in the music biz. I know large management companies with large artists that use handshake deals. Is that an old wives' tale in terms of a handshake meaning something, especially if we turn off the camera and you and I shake hands and agree on something? I mean, how does that hold up? How is it relevant?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I remember hearing about that at UCD as well. And I remember thinking, man, that's kind of a lot on the line to be not memorialized in any type of writing. You know what I mean? So a handshake deal, what you call a handshake deal, I would call an oral contract. That's how I usually refer to those types of things.
Yeah.
And this is the definition of a contract is just a promise or set of promises that's enforceable by a court.
Yeah.
That's what a contract is. So notice there's no requirement for any writing in that definition.
Yeah.
But you're going to have a proof problem, right? You're going to have an evidentiary problem. If you walk into court and say, he promised to do this and he's not doing it.
And I said, no, I didn't.
And you say, no, you didn't. It's going to be my word against yours. And someone's going to have to make a decision of whether a contract even existed to begin with.
Can you make a decision, or does there have to be evidence? I mean, if there, doesn't there have to be evidence that we talked somehow? If I just deny it, don't they have to favor me in court?
No. They could take anyone's word for it. They could take my word for it as well. If I testify very well, that's why, maybe it bears mentioning to all the good folks out there at home, litigation is not usually a great way to get a dispute resolved. I mean, because juries can be very unpredictable. And let's say you're not even trying a case to a jury. Why leave it up to someone else to decide your case?
Yeah.
That's usually what we tell our clients is at a certain point when they say, oh, we'll just try the case. Okay, well, we can do that. But you just got to know that what you're doing is leaving your fate in the hands of 12 absolute strangers. So yes, handshake deals probably exist, but they can be difficult to enforce. What I would say is certain types of agreements do have to be in writing. A good place to start with that. Your lawyer should start with the state statute of frauds, whatever relevant state you're in. And that's a statute. It's really a collection of statutes that each state has that says, hey, these types of agreements have to be in writing in order to be enforceable. Contract law is, for the most part, a state law thing. So one that might be relevant to the music industry is the sale of goods for $500 or more. Each state except Louisiana has a statute of frauds that's based on the Uniform Commercial Code pertaining to the sale of goods. Goods is any tangible personal property. So what the Uniform Commercial Code says is if you have a contract for the sale of goods that's $500 or more, that's got to be in writing. And the Copyright Act itself also lists several types of agreements that have to be in writing in order to be enforceable.
Wow.
One of those is a work made for hire. So if you're producing a record and the artist doesn't want you to be an author on the copyright, you're going to have a work made for hire contract. You're going to have that in writing.
Right. They're just paying me to produce today.
Yep.
And then it's done after today.
Exactly.
Yep. And I might charge a little bit higher rate if it's just a one-day thing and there's nothing on the back end.
Sure. Another type of agreement that has to be in writing per the Copyright Act is the transfer of any exclusive right to a copyright. So copyright is the collection of exclusive rights that the author gets. And if you're transferring the exclusive right to one of those, so you're licensing some of those rights or one of those rights at least on an exclusive basis, that's got to be in writing in order to be enforceable. Another one that could be relevant definitely is joint authorship. Okay. So if you're co-writing on a song, that has to be in writing. That's a joint authorship agreement that has to be in writing in order to be enforceable.
Wow.